Your mind has been systematically hijacked by forces designed to keep you financially mediocre. And the most dangerous part is that you've been complicit in this theft of your potential. The comfortable routines you defend and the attention habits you've developed aren't neutral choices. They're actively programming you for limitation while simultaneously programming others for abundance. Your financial struggles have nothing to do with economic conditions or your background, and everything to do with where you direct your mental focus each day. The elite performers earning six figures aren't smarter than you. They simply focus on entirely different things. The room is filled with two types of people today. Those who will live extraordinary lives of abundance, purpose, and significance, and those who will continue settling for less than they deserve, trapped in the prison of their comfortable limitations. The difference between these two groups isn't talent. It isn't opportunity, it isn't luck or connections or privilege. The single factor that will determine which path you take is something far more fundamental: your mental focus. While the masses allow their attention to be hijacked by distractions, manipulated by media, and fragmented by interruptions, the truly elite guard their focus with the same vigilance that they would guard their most precious possession, because in truth it is their most precious possession. How you direct your focus today will determine who you become tomorrow. Your current financial situation, relationships, health, and sense of fulfillment are the direct results of where you've placed your mental energy over the years. And your future circumstances will be determined by where you choose to place that energy starting right now. Where has your attention been focused over the past week? On problems or solutions? On what's missing in your life or what's available? On what others should do differently or on what you can control? On consumption or creation? On the past, the uncertain future, or the present moment where your power actually exists? The brutal truth is that most people unconsciously direct their focus toward precisely the things that guarantee mediocrity, anxiety, and limitation. Then they wonder why their circumstances never seem to improve despite their desires, their dreams, and occasionally even their desperate efforts. Today I'm going to share with you the six-figure focus method, a system used by world-class performers across every industry to achieve extraordinary results, not by working longer hours or making heroic sacrifices, but by mastering the art and science of mental focus. This method has transformed janitors into executives, teachers into millionaires, and frustrated employees into fulfilled entrepreneurs, and begins with understanding a fundamental truth. Where your focus goes, your energy flows. Let me tell you about two employees who started at the same company on the same day. Both were hired for identical positions with identical salaries. Both received the same training, the same resources, and reported to the same manager. 5 years later, one remained in essentially the same position with minimal salary increases, constant complaints about being overworked yet overlooked, and growing resentment toward the organization. The other had been promoted 4 times, had tripled their income, and had become one of the most valued leaders in the company. What made the difference? It wasn't hours worked. They put in roughly the same time. It wasn't natural talent. Both had similar aptitudes and educational backgrounds. The difference was where they directed their focus. The first employee focused obsessively on what was wrong with the company, what others should be doing differently, why certain changes wouldn't work, and how their efforts weren't being properly recognized. In meetings, they pointed out problems without suggesting solutions. When challenges arose, they focused on who was to blame rather than how to move forward. The second employee took a radically different approach. They focused relentlessly on what was working, how systems could be improved, what they could control in any situation, and how they could add more value to every project. In meetings, they concentrated on solutions rather than just problems. When facing setbacks, they focused on lessons and opportunities rather than disappointments and limitations. Same company, same starting point, dramatically different outcomes, all stemming from a fundamental difference in mental focus. This pattern repeats itself across every area of life and in every industry. Study any highly successful person, and you'll find someone who has mastered the art of directing their focus toward what produces results rather than what provides excuses, comfort, or temporary relief. The six-figure focus method distills this mastery into a practical system that anyone can implement, regardless of their starting point, natural ability, or current circumstances. It consists of 6 fundamental focus shifts that transform ordinary thinking into elite thinking, mediocre results into extraordinary achievements. Let's begin with the first and most fundamental shift. Focus shift on. From problems to solutions, The human brain has a natural tendency to focus on problems. This made perfect sense for our ancestors, whose survival depended on quickly identifying threats. But in today's world, this problem focus becomes a trap that keeps countless intelligent, capable people stuck in cycles of complaint, blame, and action. Elite performers flip this natural tendency on its head. They train themselves to move through problems quickly and direct their primary focus toward solutions. This doesn't mean ignoring problems or denying challenges. It means refusing to dwell in the problem space any longer than necessary to understand it. A small business owner watched his revenues plummet during an economic downturn. For weeks, he focused exclusively on the problem, obsessing over the unfairness of the situation, blaming external factors, and repeatedly explaining to anyone who would listen why these circumstances made success impossible. His mental energy was completely absorbed by the problem, leaving no capacity for creating solutions. He was facing a genuine challenge, but his focus was making it insurmountable. A competitor in the same industry facing identical external circumstances took a completely different approach. She acknowledged the reality of the situation in a single leadership meeting, then immediately shifted her team's focus to a simple question. Given this new reality, what opportunities are now available that weren't before? This solution focus led to identifying new customer needs created by the changing economic landscape. Within 3 months, her company had developed 2 new service offerings that not only offset the revenue decline, but actually grew their business by 23% during a period when most competitors were contracting. Same external circumstances, radically different outcomes based entirely on where they directed their focus. This solution focus must be deliberately cultivated. It doesn't happen automatically. In fact, it requires overriding your brain's default settings. Here's a practical method elite performers use to make this shift. When facing any challenge, give yourself a strictly limited problem time, perhaps 15 minutes or 1 hour, depending on the severity of the issue. During this time, fully analyze and understand the problem. Then when the time expires, deliberately shift your focus entirely to potential solutions, writing down at least 3 possible approaches regardless of how difficult the situation seems. This simple practice prevents the endless rumination that characterizes ordinary thinking while channeling your mental energy toward what actually produces results. Ask yourself, in your current challenges, what percentage of your thinking time is spent understanding the problem versus creating solutions? How would your outcomes change if you flip that ratio? Focus shift T2, from what's missing to what's available. The second fundamental shift in the 6-figure focus method is redirecting your attention from what you lack to what you already have at your disposal. Average performers are masters at identifying what they don't have. Not enough time, not enough money, not enough connections, not enough support, not enough experience, not enough education. This focus on absence creates a constant sense of scarcity and limitation that paralyzes action and justifies mediocrity. Elite performers take exactly the opposite approach. They become experts at identifying the resources, opportunities, skills, relationships, and assets they currently have available, regardless of how limited these might initially appear. This assets focus creates a foundation for action and ingenuity that consistently produces extraordinary results from ordinary circumstances. A technology professional dreamed of starting her own consulting business, but remained stuck for years because she focused exclusively on what she was missing. A financial cushion to quit her job, an established network of clients, a partner to share the risk, and the perfect economic conditions. Each missing element became a justification for inaction, and her dream remained perpetually deferred. A colleague with similar skills and circumstances took a fundamentally different approach. Instead of fixating on what he lacked, he meticulously inventoried what he already has. 8 hours every weekend, a spare bedroom that could serve as an office, knowledge that certain businesses needed, a handful of professional relationships, and a modest amount of savings that could fund basic marketing efforts. Starting with just these available resources, he began building his business on weekends while maintaining his full-time job. Within 18 months, his side consulting practice was generating enough revenue to justify a full-time transition. 3 years later, he had built a 7-figure consulting firm while his former colleague remained in the same job, still waiting for all the missing pieces to magically appear. What's particularly important to understand is that this focus on available resources creates a psychological state that research has shown to be essential for innovation, creativity, and resourcefulness. When you direct your attention to what you have rather than what you lack, your brain activates different neural pathways that support problem solving and opportunity recognition, rather than threat assessment and limitation. This doesn't mean pretending you have resources you don't. It means maximizing the impact of the resources you do have by giving them your full attention and creativity. A practical technique to develop this focus is the available resources inventory. Take 30 minutes to comprehensively list everything you currently have available to move toward your most important goal. Include obvious resources like time, money, and skills, but also less obvious assets like relationships, knowledge, credentials, technologies, physical space, and personal characteristics such as persistence, creativity, or communication ability. Most people are shocked to discover how much they actually have at their disposal when they focus on presence rather than absence. This shift in focus often reveals that they've been sitting on a wealth of untapped resources while complaining about what they lack. What resources do you already have that you're not fully utilizing? Because your attention has been focused on what's missing. How might your progress accelerate if you redirected your mental energy toward maximizing these available assets? Focus shift 3, from confirmation to curiosity. The third critical shift in the six-figure focus method moves your focus from seeking confirmation of what you already believe to cultivating genuine curiosity about what you might be missing. Average performers habitually direct their attention toward information that validates their existing perspectives. They surround themselves with people who think similarly, consume media that reinforces their current beliefs, and interpret ambiguous situations in ways that confirm what they already know to be true. This confirmation focus creates intellectual and perceptual blind spots that severely limit their effectiveness. Elite performers take the opposite approach. They actively seek information that challenges their assumptions, surrounds themselves with people who think differently, and approach situations with genuine curiosity rather than predetermined conclusions. This curiosity focus continuously expands their understanding and keeps them adaptable in rapidly changing environments. A real estate investor had developed strong convictions about which neighborhoods would appreciate and value based on his experience in the market. For years, he focused exclusively on information that confirmed his existing beliefs, dismissing contradictory data as exceptions or anomalies. This confirmation focus led him to miss a major shift in the market that was obvious to those not blinded by the need to be right. Meanwhile, a competitor with less experience but greater curiosity approached the market differently. She regularly sought out perspectives that challenged her thinking, asked questions when her assumptions weren't matching outcomes, and adjusted her strategy based on merging data rather than established beliefs. This curiosity focus allowed her to identify the market shift early and reposition her investments to capitalize on changing trends while others were still investing based on outdated patterns. Within 3 years, the curious investor had achieved returns more than triple those of her more experienced but confirmation-focused competitor. This shift requires overcoming a powerful biological tendency. Your brain naturally seeks to conserve energy by reinforcing existing neural pathways rather than creating new ones. It's literally easier and more energy efficient to process information that fits your current understanding than to integrate contradictory data. This creates a comfort-based preference for confirmation over curiosity that must be consciously overridden. A practical technique for developing this curiosity focus is the assumption challenge. Identify your 3 strongest beliefs about how to succeed in your field or achieve your current goal. For each belief, force yourself to make a compelling case for why the opposite might actually be true. Spend at least 15 minutes sincerely arguing against your own convictions, marshaling evidence and reasoning as if you were trying to convince your most skeptical critic. This practice develops the mental flexibility that characterizes elite performers across every domain. By training yourself to see beyond your preferred perspective, you develop the ability to recognize opportunities and solutions invisible to those trapped in confirmation-seeking thought patterns. And what beliefs about success in your field do you hold so strongly that you might be blind to contradictory evidence? How might your effectiveness increase if you approach these convictions with genuine curiosity rather than the need to be right? Focus shift from activity to productivity. The fourth essential shift in the six-figure focus method redirects your focus from being busy to being effective. This distinction might seem subtle, but it represents a fundamental difference between ordinary and elite performance. Average performers focus on activity. The volume of tasks completed, hours worked, or effort expended. They wear busyness as a badge of honor, confusing motion with progress and effort with results. This activity focus creates the illusion of productivity while often producing minimal, meaningful outcomes. Elite performers take a radically different approach. They focus relentlessly on productivity, the results generated relative to the time and energy invested. They measure their effectiveness not by how much they do, but by how much they accomplish. This productivity focus leads to exponentially greater outcomes from the same or even less time invested. A marketing professional worked 60-hour weeks, constantly juggling dozens of projects and priding herself on her work ethic. Despite her tremendous effort, her results remained mediocre, her income stagnant, and her stress levels dangerously high. Her focus on activity, being perpetually busy, created a life of exhaustion without advancement. Her colleague approached work differently. He identified the 20 of activities that produced 80 of valuable outcomes in their field, then ruthlessly eliminated, delegated, or streamlined everything else. This allowed him to direct his prime focus hours exclusively to high leverage tasks. Though he rarely worked more than 40 hours weekly, his results consistently outpaced those working far longer. Within 3 years, his income had tripled while his work hours had actually decreased. The practical application of this shift begins with a simple but revealing exercise. The productivity audit. For 1 week, meticulously track how you spend each hour. Then categorize activities based on their actual contribution to your most important goal. Most people are shocked to discover how much time they spend on low-value activities that create the sensation of work without producing meaningful results. Ask yourself, are you focusing on being busy or being effective? What low-value activities could you eliminate to focus more intensely on what truly moves the needle in your life and career? Focus shift by. From perfection to progress. The fifth transformative shift in the six-figure focus method moves your focus from achieving perfection to maintain momentum. This shift fundamentally alters how you approach challenges, setbacks, and the learning process itself. Average performers focus on perfection, flawless execution, ideal conditions, and error-free performance. This perfection focus creates paralysis, procrastination, and abandonment of projects at the first sign of difficulty. Nothing meaningful is ever attempted until conditions seem perfect, which in reality means many important initiatives never begin at all. Elite performers take the opposite approach. They focus relentlessly on progress, consistent forward movement through imperfect action, rapid iteration, and continuous improvement. This progress focus generates momentum that carries them through obstacles that stop others entirely. A talented graphic designer dreamed of launching her own agency, but remained stuck for years in preparation mode. She continuously refined her business plan, redesigned her website, and waited for the right time to launch. Her focus on creating the perfect start kept her from starting at all. Another designer with similar skills but a different focus launched his agency with an imperfect website, incomplete systems, and only a vague business plan. His focus on progress rather than perfection allowed him to start generating revenue immediately while refining his approach based on real-world feedback. Within 2 years, he had built a thriving agency while his perfection-focused peer remained in the preparation phase, still waiting for ideal conditions. This shift requires overcoming a powerful psychological barrier, the fear of judgment that drives perfectionism. By redirecting your focus from how your work might be judged to the progress it represents, you liberate yourself from the paralysis that keeps countless talented people from achieving their potential. In your life, has perfectionism stopped you from taking action? What project could you advance today by focusing on progress rather than flawless execution? Focus shift 6. From external validation to internal standards, the final and perhaps most powerful shift in the six-figure focus method redirects your focus from seeking others' approval to honoring your own standards of excellence. This shift fundamentally transforms your relationship with work, achievement, and fulfillment itself. Average performers focus on external validation, praise, recognition, status symbols, and others' opinions of their work. This validation focus creates dependency, inconsistency, and work that often lacks deeper meaning or purpose. Their sense of success or failure exists entirely in the reactions of others. Elite performers take a fundamentally different approach. They establish clear internal standards of excellence and focus primarily on meeting or exceeding these personal benchmarks. This standards focus produces work of consistent quality, resilience in the face of criticism, and a deep sense of fulfillment that doesn't depend on external recognition. A writer spent years seeking publishers' approval, continuously revising his work based on rejection, feedback, and trending topics. This external focus led to derivative work that neither satisfied him nor ultimately succeeded in the market. His creativity and unique voice were sacrificed in the pursuit of others' validation. Another writer took a different approach. She clarified her own standards for what constituted excellent writing according to her values, then focused relentlessly on meeting these standards regardless of current trends or immediate market response. This internal focus produced distinctive work that initially faced rejection, but eventually found a dedicated audience precisely because it wasn't created to please everyone. Within 5 years, she had built a successful career, while her validation-seeking peer continued chasing approval without finding his authentic voice. This shift is particularly challenging in a social media age where metrics of external validation are constant and visible. The courage to focus on internal standards rather than external approval represents perhaps the most fundamental distinction between ordinary and extraordinary achievement. Ask yourself, how much of your energy goes toward gaining others' approval versus meeting your own standards of excellence? What would change in your work if you focus primarily on creating value according to your own carefully considered benchmarks? Understand the 6 critical focus shifts that separate elite performers from average achievers. Each shift alone can significantly impact your results, but the true power of the 6-figure focus method emerges when these shifts work together as an integrated system, creating a compound effect that transforms ordinary lives into extraordinary success story. Let me share the experience of someone who implemented this complete system. A mid-level manager had plateaued in his career, feeling increasingly frustrated and overlooked despite his hard work and genuine capabilities. His income had stalled for 3 consecutive years, his job satisfaction was declining, and his future prospects seemed increasingly limited. What changed everything wasn't a new degree, a different company, or even working longer hours. It was systematically implementing the 6 focus shifts we've discussed today. He began by redirecting his focus from problems to solutions in every meeting and conversation. Rather than joining the chorus of complaints about company challenges, he became known as someone who consistently offered practical approaches forward. This small shift immediately differentiated him from peers. Next, he stopped fixating on resources and opportunities he lacked, instead leveraging what was already available, particularly his existing customer relationships and deep product knowledge. This assets focus revealed value creation opportunities that had been invisible when his attention was directed toward what was missing. His curiosity focus led him to regularly seek perspectives that challenged his assumptions about the market, particularly from team members with different backgrounds and thinking styles. This openness to contradictory viewpoints helped him identify an emerging customer need that others had dismissed as insignificant. Rather than filling his days with emails, meetings, and administrative tasks, he implemented a ruthless productivity focus, eliminating or delegating low-value activities to concentrate on developing a new service offering that addressed the customer need he'd discovered. His output became more valuable even as his activity decreased. Instead of waiting until his concept was perfectly developed, he embraced a progress focus, launching a minimally viable version and improving it through customer feedback. This momentum-based approach allowed him to establish leadership in the space while competitors were still in planning stages. Finally, he stopped measuring his success solely through his manager's approval or peer recognition, establishing clear internal standards based on customer impact and value creation. This standards focus gave him the courage to champion his initiative even when it initially faced internal skepticism. Within 18 months of implementing these focus shifts, he had developed a service offering that grew into the company's fastest expanding division. His income doubled, his role evolved from manager to innovation leader. His fulfillment soared not because his external circumstances dramatically changed, but because how he focused his mental energy transformed every aspect of his work. This isn't an isolated example. Across industries and roles, from entrepreneurs to corporate professionals, From creative fields to technical domains, this pattern repeats itself consistently. Change your focus, change your results. But understanding these principles isn't enough. Information without application has no value. The critical question becomes, how will you implement these focus shifts in your daily life starting today? The most effective approach isn't trying to change everything at once. Instead, select the single focus shift that would most immediately impact your current situation. Perhaps you're trapped in problem thinking and need to redirect toward solutions. Maybe you're paralyzed by perfectionism and need to embrace progress focus. Or perhaps your productivity is suffering from too much activity without clear priorities. Whatever your starting point, select one shift and implement it deliberately for the next 21 days. Create specific triggers that remind you to redirect your focus when you slip into old patterns. Share your commitment with someone who will hold you accountable. At day's end, briefly journal how this shift affected your decisions, actions, and results. After 3 weeks, add a second focus shift while continuing to strengthen the first. Following this progressive implementation approach, within 6 months you can completely transform your mental focus patterns and with them your life outcomes. Remember that these shifts don't require more time, more resources, or more opportunities than you currently have. They simply redirect the focus you're already using toward what actually produces results rather than what feels comfortable, familiar, or temporarily satisfying. Those who land today by noting that the room contains two types of people. Those who will live extraordinary lives and those who will continue settling for less than they deserve. The difference isn't circumstances but focus. And focus, unlike many factors in life, is entirely within your control. Every time you redirect your attention from problems to solutions, from what's missing to what's available, from confirmation to curiosity, from activity to productivity, from perfection to progress, and from external validation to internal standards, you are literally rewiring your brain toward elite performance patterns. This isn't mystical thinking, it's neurological reality. Your brain physically changes based on where you direct your attention habitually. Focus on limitations and your neural pathways strengthen towards seeing more limitations. Focus on opportunities and your brain becomes increasingly effective at recognizing possibilities where others see only obstacles. The quality of your focus determines the quality of your life, not occasionally but inevitably, not partially but completely. The decision point has arrived. Will you continue with your current focus patterns, essentially guaranteeing that your future results will mirror your past? Or will you commit to the focus shifts that create extraordinary outcomes? The path towards six-figure thinking and elite performance is neither mysterious nor complicated. It doesn't require special talents or favorable circumstances. It requires only the courage to direct your focus differently than the majority, consistently, persistently, regardless of immediate comfort or convenience. Choose wisely. Choose consciously. Your focus determines your future,